Sanja. Sanja. Okay, you don't have leadership? No.
Honorable members, let us pray. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to look with favor upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic. Endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and truly served, and that good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. O God, grant us a vision of our country, fair as it might be, a country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, a country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people, that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honorable members, we'll take item 5. Item 5, correction of votes and proceedings and official reports. We start with the correction of votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 28th January 2025. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Is that page 8 or 9? Yes, please.
Speaker, page 8. I recall yesterday when the leader of the House presented a statement calling for a pension scheme for members of parliament as rightly captured. There was a consequential directives that some ad hoc, some committee should be formed, and that finds expression in the votes. However, I recall it was agreed that it should be appreciated as a matter of fact, that the whips should be part of any committee to advise on pension for members. I find my name there. Unfortunately, I don't see my colleague majority whip's name there. The Honorable Dafemepo's name is conspicuously missing, and if the table can take notice of that.
Yes, I wasn't presiding at that time, but I'm sure you've all heard the minority chief whip. Is that the case that the whips were to be added? Yes, please. Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. When we constituted the committee, the whips gave an indication that they ought to be part of it, and we agreed. So I think that we can add their names.
That would take the number to 10.
That is so, Mr. Speaker, but I do not foresee situations where they have to vote or there will be controversies. I think that the matters that they are dealing with are matters that there is consensus. And so I doubt if having an even number will be a problem.
Well, I have some knowledge about these things, and there are some instances that they will have to take a decision as to whether to include one item or the other, because they differ from country to country. I know about the United Kingdom, I know about South Africa, I know about Kenya. I've seen those in other countries like India, and they differ. So there will be instances where you need to vote. For example, if you're looking at quantum of contribution by beneficiaries, or if you look at the issue of inclusion of spouse, and they differ. And I think you should take that into consideration. I'm aware a team was already working at this. And in fact, in the 8th Parliament, I facilitated their travels to these jurisdictions to learn from them and to get some copies of some of their acts, the legislations, to guide them in crafting our own. But if you insist, I'll just leave it to the table office to include the name of the Honorable Majority Chief Whip. Yes, Majority Leader.
Indeed, Mr. Speaker, in that Parliament, Honorable Kodo used to handle a lot of issues relating to the welfare and emoluments of members of Parliament. we actually toyed with the idea of having Honorable Kudu as a member of the committee. Our rules do permit you, Mr. Speaker, to include non-members to serve on committees so that we could draw from Honorable Kudu's extensive knowledge and appreciation of welfare issues to guide the committee. So if we have to make the committee membership 11, then I will urge that as we add the two whips, we also rope in Honorable Kudu to help the committee to work on the issues that we are assigning to them so that we can have an 11-member committee.
Yes.
Speaker, I would rather suggest, with respect to the Leader of the House, that the two leaders should engage further on the same matter. Because yesterday, as we came to some agreement, there was an afterthought. We felt there were a number of our colleagues who would also have some privileged knowledge in the matter or subject matter we're discussing. So that's just an afterthought. We thought they should have rather feature on the membership. But more to the point, as was raised by Mr. Speaker, with respect, I believe this initial works are a committee that will go and do some work, and then we'll bring their recommendations to plenary to adapt or otherwise. So the question of votes may not necessarily come up at that level. So probably, Speaker, you are very experienced in these matters, and especially on this subject matter, and you spoke to how you have supported us in visiting other jurisdictions to borrow into what was happening. Maybe subject to further discussions from the two leaders in consultation with you, we can adopt this now, pending a conclusive decision with the two leaders, and of course, with your blessings, Speaker, so that we don't belabor the point.
Yes, let me hear from you.
Mr. Speaker, thanks for the opportunity. And since our leaders in the House have spoken, I need not add more. However, with guidance from you and with respect as well, looking at the composition of the committee, if the leaders, after they've conferred or in their deliberation, see it fit to add an addition, I will crave on their indulgence to look at the gender composition of the committee. I'm seeing out of the 9, only one honorable sister is captured. And I think that this imbalance is so huge. So they should think about it and see if it's possible for them to add an additional honorable sister. Thank you.
You are welcome to the club. Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. On the corrections, page 8, if I have your permission, I recall that the members of the committee were given 45 days to come up with the report, with their report, but over here it is captured as 90 days. So if the table office, it's captured here, report to the House within 90 days, but I recall we said 45 days. Yes. But over here it's captured as 90 days, so if they can do the correction. Thank you.
The brief I have is that the initial proposal was 45 days, but you concluded at 90 days. not 45. Is that the case? 90 days. That's 3 months. Yes, please.
Mr. Speaker, we were discussing the period, but then when we realized that based on his intervention on the floor, extensive work had already taken place. As you indicated, you financed a number of trips for people to understudy, other countries, study what is happening in other countries, and then put together a report. We thought that there was no need wasting time because there's extensive work on the matter. So instead of waiting for another 3 months, because that is how in the past some of these things, fell through and never got done. So we insisted that 45 days, within the 45 days, let's review what we have. And if we need to add any information, we can add, and then we can wrap up the work. So please, it remains 45 days.
Yeah, so honorable members, since we are at correction of votes and proceedings, 2 things are to be taken care of by the table office. One is to add the name of the Honorable Dafiamapo, and the other is to delete 90 days and insert 45 days. The other matters will be discussed later on. That's not part of correction of votes and proceedings. Page 8?
No.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker. Forgive me to take you back to page 7. Number 4, item 7. I was present in the chamber, but I've been marked absent. That is Ata Issa Sanaru.
Yes, table office kindly take note of that. But please, by the standing orders, you have to make some indication. Sometimes it's difficult to identify the fresh members. So when the form is being sent around, make sure you append your signature to it. Please. Page 9. Yes.
Right Honourable Speaker, permit me once again to just refer to page 8. The Honourable Member for Wijagbawe, in fact, he called on the nation to prioritize care for persons living with neglected tropical diseases, because the leprosy was captured under neglected tropical diseases. The follow-up comment and contributions, that was when we enlarged the discussion to persons living with disabilities. By his actual statement, he also asked that we prioritize the care for persons living with neglected tropical diseases. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is the honorable member available? No. Yes, please.
Speaker, I think with respect to my colleague, I think on these matters, first of all, the vote is supposed to capture summary, and it is the Hansard that will reflect detailed proceedings. What we can do is the table could have a copy of the statement, and then they will be in a position to confirm what the title exactly was. My colleague may have a point, but it has to be done in conjunction with the original text.
What is being captured here is what the statement was on. Was it on World Leprosy Day? That's what.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it was
celebrated.
World
Yes.
Leprosy Day.
Yes, so the details will be in the official report. So we take it as having been properly captured. Page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. If I have your permission, I would like to look at page 9.
Page 9, yes please.
Point 7. It gave a summary of a report that the Honorable Majority Leader gave to the House concerning the issue of Ablekuma North. Having regards to exactly what the Majority Leader briefed us, it was an update. He was asked, he agreed to go and engage and come back and report to the House. And I know his report had to do with an update on the collation exercise with his engagement to the police. And then finally, he told the House that he was going to further engage the EC and other stakeholders and report back. My concern is that the entire summary doesn't really capture, as I've indicated. It was an update to the House on the exercise he wanted to do, and then a suggestion to go back and further engage, an extension of time to go and come back. So I just wanted to see if something could be done about this narration. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, is that a fair summary of what took place yesterday? Yes.
Speaker, the honorable member is right. And we also further appeal to the respected Majority Leader. In fact, we congratulated him for the good work he had done, and then we further urged him not to work alone or not to walk alone, but rather to work in collaboration with his counterpart, the respected Minority Leader, so that he doesn't, and I thought that was a very significant point. Even though the vote is a summary, it should find expression there. Yes.
Well, may I advise that you get in touch with the table office to get a proper rendition or summary of what took place. I wasn't the one presiding yesterday. Yes, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14, page 15. Yes, please.
Honorable Speaker, please, on page 15, Roman numeral XXIX and XXXII, I see Na Ibrahim Mahama, Paramount Chief, Nampala. Then another Na Ibrahim Mahama, Paramount Chief, Nampala. I'm not sure whether it's the same person or different persons. So if the table office could check and remedy it if it's the same person. Thank you.
Yes, table office, please. Kindly cross-check. It might be repetition. Page 16. Page 17. Page 17, yes, please.
Honorable Speaker, on page 17, there is a minor observation and appointment committee. Honorable Muntaka Mohammed Mubarak. I've seen a hyphen in between Mohammed and Mubarak, which is different from his usual name, how it is spelled. If you go to page number 5, number 175, it is Muntaka Mohammed Mubarak Al-Haji. There is no hyphen between Mohammed and Mubarak. Thank you.
Honorable Member, we've taken notice of that, but it looks like the rendition at page 5 is rather incorrect. The rendition at page 17 is the correct one. It's hyphenated Mohammed Mubarak from the records that is available, official records available. So we rather correct the one at page 5. Page 18. Page, 18. Yes.
Honorable Speaker, on number XX15, the name there should be Mr. Seydou Alassane Alajo, not Doctor.
XX.
1F, 1V, F, sorry, XXIV. Should be Mr. Seydou Alassane Alajo, not Dr. Seydou Alassane Alajo.
Oh, it's not doctor, it's Mr.
Mr.
That's the correction.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. Table office, kindly take note of that. Page 19. Yes, please.
Honorable Speaker, on page 19, Roman number XXXII, Nanaya Achampim Janta, Presidential Staffer, Office of the President. If it is the Nanaya Jantua that I know, then it should be Jantua, not Janta. I stand to be corrected, though. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Member, you are correct. That's the daughter of the great politician, Honorable Jantua of the First Republic. Page 20. Yes.
I will speak on page 20, Roman number XLI, Mr. Mohammed Abdul Wahab. And I see Iman Kotokoli. I'm thinking, though I might be wrong, that it should be Imam, unless I'm wrong. Thank you.
It's likely to be the printer's devil. So please, table office, kindly take note of that. Page 21. Page 22. Sorry, we end at page 21. Honorable members, in the absence of any further corrections, the votes and proceedings of the 8th sitting dated Wednesday, 29th January 2025, is adopted as a true record of proceedings. I have a copy of the official report of Friday, 24th January 2025. Honorable members, any corrections? Yes.
The Speaker, on column 102 and a recommendation, the rendition is not widely captured. What is captured here is, if you permit me, I'll read. The committee recommends the nomination of Ms. Rita Akosua Awate, the Eastern Regional Minister, and it doesn't make quite sense. And I think that looking at what has been captured on previous recommendations, it should rather be the committee recommends to the House by consensus the nomination of Ms. Rita Akosua Awate as the Eastern Regional Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Member, I think he's right. table office kindly take note of that and inform the Hansard office to do the proper thing. Yes, any more? Honorable members, in the absence of any further corrections, the official report of Friday, 24th January 2025 is hereby adopted as a true record of proceedings. May we now move to item 6. Item 6, which is statements. Do we take statements now, or we have some reports we can present before we take the statements?
Mr. Speaker, we will seek your leave to alter the order of business and then take the report. Item 8, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, I've been called upon to vary the order of business. Is that the sense of the House? Yes, Minority Leader.
Rightly so, Mr. Speaker. The Majority Leader did engage me, and I have no objection.
Honorable members, we proceed to, at the commencement of public business, item 8, motion by the chairman of the committee.
Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the motion numbered 8 at page 2 of today's order paper, that notwithstanding the provisions of Order 1041 of standing orders, which require that a motion shall not be debated until at least 2 sitting days have elapsed after the notice to move the motion is given, the motion for the adoption of the 9th report of the Appointment Committee on His Excellency the President's nomination for appointment as ministers of state may be moved today. Mr. Speaker, I so move.
Any seconder?
Right Honorable Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
Motion moved and seconded for the consideration of the House. This being a procedural motion, I put the question. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. We move now to item 9, also motion, the chairman of committee.
Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the motion number 9 at page 3 of today's order paper, that this Honorable House adopt the 9th report of the Appointment Committee on His Excellency the President's nomination for appointments as Minister of State. And Mr. Speaker, in doing so, I present the 9th report of the Appointment Committee and place on record that the 9th report was a report solely on Honorable Dr. Edward Kofi Omani Boama. Right Honorable Speaker, questions were posed to the nominee for the minister responsible for defense, and answers were provided. Questions were on commitment to transparent recruitment in the Ghana Armed Forces, accommodation challenge in the Ghana Armed Forces, enhancing the military healthcare infrastructure, enhancing Ghana's role in global peacemaking efforts, the role of the military in domestic law enforcement. Right Honorable Speaker, questions on military deployment in combating Galamsey, military deployment at polling stations during elections were posed to the nominee, among others. Right Honorable Speaker, other questions were posed to the nominee, but I will urge the Hansard Department to capture the entire report as having been read together with the answers provided by the nominee, whilst I proceed to read the conclusion of the committee's report. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, the committee, in accordance with Article 78(1) of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana and Standing Order 217, recommended that Honorable Edward Kofi Omani Boma be approved by this House as a Minister for Defense. And right, Honorable Speaker, the position of the committee was consensus. There was a unanimity recommending him to the House for approval. Mr. Speaker, I urge upon the House to adopt the committee's report and similarly, in unanimity, approve him as a Minister for Defense. Mr. Speaker, I so submit.
Honorable members, any seconder? Yes, please.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second this motion. Mr. Speaker, in seconding the motion, I need to point out an important matter, which is not the fault of the chair of the committee, but the clerk to the committee. Mr. Speaker, I am seconding this motion only because I want government business to proceed, because the Defense Ministry is a critical ministry that needs a minister. Mr. Speaker, records of this House must reflect that our clerk has opted not to share the draft report with the minority leader and the ranking of the committee. Mr. Speaker, I have complained, and if we are to pursue our rights, perhaps we will not take this report. But I would want to place on record that this same clerk who, when I was in government, she would insist that the minority leader must see the draft report before she ferries him to the chair to sign, has now for conveniently managed to only get the chair of the committee to sign the report without getting it to my office. Mr. Speaker, there were very key matters that came up at the vetting committee, at the appointment committee hearing. And she's found it prudent to capture those that she conveniently think must be in a report. Key issue, such as the nominee's social media post that the NPP was looting GIS lands. And when the nominee was confronted with that fact, he had to retreat by admitting that indeed he erred, and that with the benefit of hindsight, that thing would not repeat, and in fact retracted it. This is a very critical matter of reputational value, because here was an incident at GIS where a private citizen at 2 a.m. was appropriating GIS land, and the nominee wrote on social media that the MPP administration was looting public lands. This indeed, Mr. Speaker, the nominee retracted, yet the committee clerk, unbeknown to me, prepared this report and sent it to chair without capturing these key things. Mr. Speaker, there was also some comments that he made against the Electoral Commission, which when confronted had to beat a retreat on. These are matters that have not been properly addressed. Mr. Speaker, we will not want to be pursuing these things, but we just want the record to reflect that we are in this together and the right thing must be done. Mr. Speaker, that said, I would want to encourage the nominee that per what he has said, he intends to take steps to ensure sustainability of certain infrastructural development that he classified as some success stories that he's come across as part of the debriefing. Mr. Speaker, I would encourage the nominee to pursue these things because government is a continuum. Second, the issue of military lands. Since this all looting issue has now gained public prominence, he gave his assurance to the committee that the area which has now become known as chain homes, which previously belonged to the military, he would take steps in investigating how that private developer acquired that vast stretch of state land which belonged to the military. That was his promise to the committee. Unfortunately, it's not been well captured. I would pray that he would take steps to do this. Mr. Speaker, directly connected to this matter is an incident that I related to this morning, where even in the presence of the military, certain individuals invaded the airport VVIP lounge. They placed
Honorable Minority Leader, I don't want you to combine the two.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, I thought I could deal with it once and for all, but if I should deal with it independently after this, that's fine. Mr. Speaker, I take guidance from you.
Yes.
Then I would address it as we agreed after this. Then without more, I shall rest my case and second the motion for the House to be seized with it, to deal with it. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the 9th report of the Appointments Committee requesting this House to approve the President's nominee for the Ministry of Defence. Mr. Speaker, whilst doing so, I wish to express reservation about the manner in which the Minority Leader has gone against his own advice that he has given to many of us in this House on the floor. Advice being not to introduce staff of Parliament, officers of this House who have no opportunity to defend themselves on the floor into our discussions. I am surprised that as an advocate of that over the years, he will throw caution to the wind this afternoon and take on the clerk of the Appointments Committee in the manner that he has done, knowing very well that the clerk has no opportunity of self-defense on the floor of this House. I think that, as I have come to learn, the practice is that when a report is laid, the clerks are not usually able to capture all that transpired during the meeting of the committee, but members are still at liberty to comment on the issues that were raised at the committee level, even if those don't find expression in the report. Like the Minority Leader has done, he could have just gone ahead to highlight the issues he wanted captured on the report without, raising reservations about the conduct of the clerk. Mr. Speaker, having said that, I want to reiterate the point that the President's nominee, in this case, Dr. Omani Boama, is one distinguished gentleman, very focused, very intelligent, and it showed when he appeared before the committee in the manner that he answered the questions that were fielded by members of the committee. Indeed, Dr. Omani Boama has been in government before, served as Minister for Communications, and discharged himself creditably And as somebody that some of us have worked closely with, especially when I was in the media, I can attest to his diligence and his professionalism, his fairness and his objectivity when it comes to the way he handles issues that are presented before him. And I therefore think that he's going to carry, I hope that he's going to carry that same qualities that he's been noted for over the years to the Ministry of Defense, which requires such selflessness, such discipline, such thoroughness to, put our country's security at the level that we will all feel safe to go about our everyday activities. I was particularly excited when he gave the assurance that our military will be cleaned, or if you like, exorcised of the political or partisan spirit that we have come to associate with it over the period, especially when it comes to recruitment. Over the years, we have all expressed concern about how political figures parade officers that they have facilitated or assisted to get recruited into the Ghana Armed Forces, a practice that many of our citizens have condemned, and rightly so, because that encourages partisanship and that, throws discipline to the dogs. And I think that he will have the support of many Ghanaians if he ensures that recruitment processes are above board and are fair and open to every Ghanaian who is willing to put on the uniform to serve our nation. I was very excited about that assurance. However, I was a bit concerned when during deliberations it came out that there were protocol, recruitments extended to, members of parliament and political figures. I think such things put all of us in the political class at risk. It does not really help with the kind of cooperation and collaboration that we want from our citizens to protect and preserve this democracy. When people begin to think that unfair favors are extended to a certain class of people, then it becomes a worry for them to be expected to support that kind of system that exploits them. So I think that moving forward, as a member of parliament, I know that I never enjoyed any protocol recruitment extended to me by any minister in any of our security services. And I'm sure that majority of us here never enjoy that. But every now and then, we all get mails, either through social media, from people who tell us that they have heard of protocol slots, or they know of protocol slots, or people have duped them using offers of protocol slots in our names. And even during our campaigns in our constituencies, it comes up, and we struggle to defend that these favors are not extended to us. But when you have some of our colleagues, especially in leadership, go on national TV and make those claims like they were made during the vetting of the Minister for Defense designate, it gives credence to this, which fuels, in some cases, hate against us in the political class, and also makes it difficult for us to defend what is the truth. The truth is that we are not all always given these protocol slots. If some enjoy it, I'm sure they are in the minority and not in the majority. And minority here, not referring to the classes in this chamber, but I am referring to the fact that I am sure they are few compared to those of us who are in the majority who do not enjoy those favors. And even if that exists, we should be looking at how to make the system such that it is equitable, it is fair, and everybody who applies stand an equal chance of getting selected, and rather not to encourage that practice. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I want to associate myself with the call for this House to approve the President's nominee. I thank you for the opportunity.
I think after this, we may have to put the question. Yeah, so I'll give you the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to humbly add my voice to the voices that are ballyhooing Dr. Omane Boama, Minister Nominee for the defense sector in our country. But trying to add my voice to what they are saying positively, Mr. Speaker, I would like to also admonish him. Apart from the fact that I'm wishing him well, I want to admonish him to expedite, as a matter of urgency and emergency, actions on what is prevailing in our country today. What is tarnishing our reputation as a country, not only on the continent of Africa, but on the globe, in terms of attacks on private homes, private properties, and even properties of the state. Mr. Speaker, one of the things that has actually placed Ghana on top of the global league table is our reputation in terms of peace, tranquility, coexistence, democracy. But what is happening today in our country is unprecedented. And I think each and every one who has Ghana at heart must join this call so that as a country, we will not get ourselves into a situation where it will be very difficult to restore our image. Mr. Speaker, our own constitution, Article 18(1), states emphatically clear without any ambiguity that everyone has the right to own a property, either alone or in association. Mr. Speaker, Clause 2 of the same constitutional article states that no one shall be subjected to interference of his private home, properties, and others. But Mr. Speaker, here is the case that we are witnessing glaringly properties of private sectors, even public, being burnt, destroyed, and even blood of innocent Ghanaians are being shed. And the private investors all over the world are watching us. Mr. Speaker, almost everywhere in the world, when they are talking about Africa, they mention Ghana. Gateway to Africa. Now they see the blood stains on that same gate. So investments are being undermined, are being threatened, just because a political party has won power. Mr. Speaker, listen. If you allow me, Mr. Speaker, if you allow me, teach them. Permit me to just give one line of this chorus. Oh, the Asempa Nenamo, Asempa Nenamo. Is this the Asempa that they were talking about? Mr. Speaker, Asempa whereby people are dying in our country. Mr. Speaker, now certain parts of Ghana, innocent Ghanaians, school children, are supposed to stay home because of insecurity. Go to Obuasi. Mr. Speaker, now in some churches, the thematic topics for Sunday preaching is about insecurity. I never knew the unprecedented victory was going to allow something that we thought, in our opinion as Ghanaians, peaceful countries such as Ghana, these primitive, outmoded, dysfunctional behaviors. So, Mr. Speaker, knowing Dr. Omane Boama, he's a very fine gentleman, very knowledgeable. He's gone through the mill. We all have had the opportunity to be in association with him. But it is my outcry, and the outcry of many Ghanaians, old and young, rich and poor, men and women, that this unprecedented, dysfunctional behavior, socially unacceptable behavior, must be curtailed as early as possible. It is the first preliminary test of the incoming minister. And this is an admonishment that I'm asking every Tom, Dick, and Harry in this house to help uphold the democracy that, Mr. Speaker, we all learn from you and others when we were young. It is very unacceptable that 21st century on the globe and on the continent of Africa, a party will win elections, and a party that believes in democracy will begin to take us back.
Just a minute. Honorable member. Honorable member, just a minute. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rose to get your guidance to direct our colleague to speak to the report that has been submitted for consideration. Because, Mr. Speaker, the references he is making are about internal security. Mr. Speaker, the report is about the Minister for Defense designate and not the Minister for Interior designate. And I would have thought that if he was concerned about internal security, for which he wants attention to be given, he will wait for us to consider the report for the Minister designate for Interior and not Defense. Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, I seek your guidance to plead with our colleague to hold his already prepared weapons and wait when it is time for the Interior designate, even though it's not part of the report.
Honorable members, please. Honorable members, I took it that you rose up in support of your leader, and that is why I gave time for you after showing your support to resume your seat, which you have done. And so I'll give him the permission to have a word, but I had already indicated earlier on that I was going to give you an opportunity to make a statement on a similar matter.
Had the opportunity to contribute. He spent his first 5-6 minutes to attack my submissions. I didn't have a problem with it. And he had his bite. Our side listened to him in silence. No single member of parliament to your left opened his mouth. We listened to him. I never got up to even challenge him. I could have gotten up to raise issues, but I felt it was unnecessary. This is democracy. Tolerance is part of democracy. Mr. Speaker, it's gotten to the turn of Honorable Dr. Stephen Amwa. Mr. Speaker, throughout his submissions, we heard them, the noise, the name calling and all that, though they didn't speak into the mic. But Mr. Speaker, I recall when we were younger, in minority 2015, and you had assumed the black seat as majority leader one more time. There was a day that we, the backbenchers, were heckling you. And I recall you saying to us that heckling is part of democracy, but reckless heckling is unacceptable. These were your words. Reckless heckling. Mr. Speaker, it is becoming one too many. The reckless heckling coming from the majority. This is not part of democracy. Their intolerance level is getting out of hand. You have your say. You see? Oh, you are. Yes. Yes, you will not tolerate. Yes, you will not tolerate. Mr. Speaker, we are always ready to listen to you. You are never ready to listen to us. For me, because I have the mouth to say what you can tell me, I will keep quiet and listen to you. Because when it gets my turn, I can also do what I want to do. But let's understand that this is democracy. Listening to your colleague in silence is part of democracy. That is what Mr. Speaker taught us. There should be no reckless heckling. Mr. Speaker, I would end here without more. My colleague is on his feet. The pleasure is yours to direct proceedings. I thank you so much.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the honorable member who was on his feet in the past has sometimes been so emotional that sometimes he cries. So, Mr. Speaker, what I heard from this side were pleased that he shouldn't cry because they saw him getting so emotional. So they were not heckling him. They were just begging him not to cry. We like him. We get excited anytime he's on his feet. He has contributed enormously to the vocabulary of this chamber. And so each time he is speaking, we listen attentively because he might drop one or two new vocabularies. But we don't want him to cry, Mr. Speaker. So I have heard the minority leader. I think that it has become something that we do in this chamber. Sometimes we are very good friends without really intending to heckle them. But I also will plead with the minority leader that using such words as intolerance and accusing the majority of being intolerant is also not in very good taste. So if you can deal with that.
The majority leader is my gentleman of the year. Mr. Speaker, this is my senior who saw to my politics in the sub-region, coming from him, and I take it back. It shouldn't be part of the records that I've used the word "you are intolerant." But please limit the heckling. Mr. Speaker, I will urge them to limit the heckling. I've taken back the phrase "you are intolerant," and I apologize to you. Thank you.
Yes. Honorable Dr. Amwa, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with the advice you've given us, I'm sure at the appropriate time, we're going to actually tackle this comprehensively. However, I would like to correct my brother from the other side, that when you have social issues such as what is prevailing in Ghana, and then trying to deal with it, that task becomes laborious, cumbersome, and tedious. You need to make sure that you consolidate the effort of all security agencies. So it's not only limited only to the Interior Ministry. Before I just conclude, Mr. Speaker, I would like to call the state to ensure that we find a way to develop a balance between military necessity and humanity. It's extremely critical. We need to look at that. Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't be too emphatic because of your advice. But it is also good that we continue to let them understand the fact that our mothers and sisters now, out of fear, cannot even go out after 5 p.m. Mr. Speaker, one good thing I like about you, and honestly I like, is that you are a man of truth. You said it all. It is unprecedented. Until recently, such a peaceful country, society, ecosystem, now we can't live together because somebody has one power. To the extent that fire service, police stations, now even the security agencies themselves are not safe. How much less we, ordinary Ghanaians? Mr. Speaker, this is something that we need to accord the necessary attention as a country. Mr. Speaker, is it part of the 24-hour economy? Mr. Speaker, as I said, we will have the right time to address this unprecedented mambo-jumbo, higgledy-piggledy issue. But I would like to say that Dr. Omane Buama is somebody that, in terms of meritocracy, he deserves this appointment, and we will accord him the needed support so we can work together as a house. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, I proceed to put the question. Those in favor of the adoption of the motion say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Is there any other item we'll take before we go to statements?
No, Speaker, we can go back to statements.
Thank you so much. Honorable members, we go to item 6, statements. We have a number of statements, and these have been admitted by the Speaker. But before I wanted to give opportunity to the minority leader, yes, so that he could make his statement, and then I will hand over to the second deputy speaker to take the rest of the statements. So I have an indication from the minority leader that he's going to make a statement on a subject matter he shared with me. But before he does that, please, I want to stress the issue raised by Honorable Suhini. You know how supportive our staff are to us. They are not perfect. They can err, but because they don't have the opportunity on the floor to defend themselves, we all agree that we should not take them on. These are administrative matters that can be handled behind the scenes, not on the floor. So I think the minority leader went overboard in his references to the clerk, to the committee, and please, it's not something that should be done. I myself, after his statement, took up the matter, did a bit of investigation. I've got responses to that. But these are not matters I'll be disclosing on the floor of the House. They are matters that we'll handle after this. So please, may I, on your behalf, convey our regrets to the clerk. It's something that at least she will understand. Having been in this house for some time, once in a while members are carried away by some of these things, because the challenge of this House, please, honorable members, the challenge of this House is that many of the things that we complain about are beyond our control. Even members of parliament have been assaulted a number of times, even killed. A number of members of parliament have lost their lives in the course of their duty. And so this is a matter that concerns us all. And I want us, even in this position, to try to be a force to get Ghanaians to turn over a new leaf. As minority leader from 2001, I can share a lot of experiences and documents with you on this matter. But that doesn't mean it's something that we should allow to fester. We have to do something about it. As leaders, we have to do something about it. And we have to do something about it and get the executive, they who are to execute what we decide as representatives of the people. We take the decisions, we make the laws, they are to implement those decisions and the laws. And so we must first take the decision, we must first make the law, and we must ensure that they implement the laws. It's a responsibility we have to shoulder. And so when you are expressing these things, let's have the patience to listen. Because if you want the opportunity, I'll give you, and you express your views. But there's some impression outside there, which impression is not correct, it's not right. We must all help to combat it. We must be united in that. Not because this is in power, this is in opposition, this one is in power today, this another in opposition. No, not that one. Please, let's be honest and candid in our submissions. And let the people not hear us. Let them feel it, let them see it in us. That we are trustworthy. And what we say, we mean what we say. Not because the fire is on somebody's back and not yours. Please. I'm saying this because he's going to make a statement which will touch on this issue of violence. And I want us to take the time to deal with it and let Ghanaians hear us. Then from there, we can move on to take some resolutions. We are to assist and we are to oversee the government to do what is right. If we're talking about resetting, we must be part of the resetting. Please. So I'll allow the minority leader to have his say, and I'll give all of you opportunity if you want to, depending on the guidance from the leadership. Today is your day. Please. Minority leader, as you make your statement, take this on board.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for this treasure space to make this statement of the violence that took place at the Jubilee Lounge at the airport on the 14th day of January 2025. Mr. Speaker, the director in charge of the lounge, popularly known as the Jubilee Lounge, Mr. George Boateng, on the said date was conducting his usual duties, and soon after the departure of His Excellency, the President, to Dubai, some thugs jammed the gates and attacked him until he became unconscious. He is an officer of the state. He had the firm instructions of the Chief of Staff to hold on till a replacement was made. In other words, he was told to hold on to up to 31st of January when a replacement will be made, a new person will be appointed. So he was only waiting to do a formal handing over. Mr. Speaker, as you've rightly said, what happened on the 7th of January was a regular election in our country, a change of government, a new party has taken over, and that is democracy. We must not allow some thugs within our ranks to do that which will jeopardize the future of democracy in our country. I take this opportunity to call on all political leaders in our country to take time, educate the youth, encourage them to be lawful, and avoid taking the law into their own hands. Mr. George Boateng is a Ghanaian like all of us. It is true that the government that appointed him is no more, but there's a need for a smooth transition, a transition that will allow the new officer to take over from him. But whilst I'm at this, Mr. Speaker, let me also thank the military men on duty that day for their peaceful intervention. But for them, perhaps Mr. George Boateng would have lost his life. Watching the pathetic video, their intervention helped to save the life of our dear brother George Boateng. I pray that a thing like this never happens again in our country. Mr. Speaker, to conclude, I would want this House to take a strong stance to ferry a resolution to the executive to the effect that all must be done in ensuring that, if possible, an enactment is brought to this House, a bill is brought to this House for an enactment that will deal with issues such as what has happened in a post-election era. Ghana is all we have. We do not have to jeopardize our democracy. And our conduct as political leaders must also give a positive signal to our citizens that we are here as brothers and sisters. We are not here to fight. We don't demand for power to unleash violence, but we demand for power for development. Mr. Speaker, without more, I would want to thank you for this treasured space, and I pray that the needful will be done to safeguard our democracy and to assure every citizen that the change of power does not call for violence. Thank you very much, sir.
What's the pleasure of the House? Two from each side of the House, and then leaders. But I will allow the majority leader to have the bites, and then, because I see some members want to say something, and definitely I'll be very, very, very watchful, and I'll make sure that I don't allow you to go beyond some limits. So I'll allow the majority leader to speak first, then I take one from this side, another from this side, and we can end it. Sorry? You will end it after you've spoken at the end?
Speaker, with respect, originally the understanding was that it's going to be leaders, but yes, considering the pleasure of the House, we can take 2-2 under the consideration, the guidance you gave, then leader would close it up. So Mr. Kojo Oponkoma and Honorable Abu-Jinapor, Mr. Abu-Jinapor, on my side, would
yes, I would have taken one from my right before I come to my left again. And so from my right, who is, you are the one from your leader, Suhini. Okay, please.
Right, Honorable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I'm very excited that you are guiding this conversation for us to not do our usual politicking with a very serious matter that in some cases have led to loss of lives and destruction of property. Mr. Speaker, we are often told that the more things change, the more they remain the same. And based on that, we are encouraged to see wrong as wrong, no matter the time and no matter who it affects. And I'm sure if we did that repeatedly, many of our problems in this country would have been solved long ago. And I am happy that the guidance we have as we engage in this conversation is for us to look at how we can deal with this problem and not how to remind each other of who did it first and who is taking revenge or responding. And especially, I'm happy that the conversation is not about laying blames on which regime is the one that has done it the most during political takeover after elections. When I was listening to the minority leader, Mr. Speaker, for a moment, and it is so with many news reports, sometimes when you pick our old news reports, you only have to change names, and the stories will still be relevant today, even if the story was first published in the 60s. And so when I was listening to the minority leader, for a moment, I thought he was going to say ASP Nanka Bruce, but he said George Boateng. But the scenarios are the same. The effect is the same. It's just the times that differ, 2017 and 2021. When will it end? And that's why I'm happy that this conversation is about looking at how to deal with the problem. And so, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for that guidance, and I thank the minority leader for raising this concern. And sometimes let's not wait for an equalization to happen before we look for a solution. Every time something is wrong, let's deal with it as and when it is wrong, whether it affects us or not. Once we identify it as being wrong, we must be bold enough to confront it. Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to comment on the statement that has been made by the minority leader. I was hoping that in the commentary, we will not go back into the finger pointing and the attempt to equalize. Indeed, this has happened in times past. Around 2017, when similar incidents took place, the administration even went further to pass the anti-vigilante bill into law as part of measures to contain it. So my hope is that the discussion we're having today will not seek to equalize and be pointing fingers here and there. Mr. Speaker, to deal with it, the first thing we have to do is to take responsibility. And we have to call a spade a spade. This escalation of violence post the 2024 elections is simply because the political class, the two leading political parties, have instigated it. And Mr. Speaker, I'll give evidence. On the night of the election, you had senior political actors on television asking supporters of their parties to go to collation centers under various disguises. Mr. Speaker, that is the kind of instigation that triggered what started then and is still going on. We must accept the responsibility as a first step if we want to deal with it. The second responsibility, Mr. Speaker, is that we have failed to be bold in condemning it. We whiff and whaff around the corners, depending on where we are. In fact, it is only the Savannah Regional Branch of the NDC that I have seen issue a clear statement of condemnation and ask the police to deal with the persons who are engaging in these incidents of violence. The condemnation should be strong and robust and across board, not whiffing and whaffing because they may be persons who are associated with our political parties. Mr. Speaker, the third thing is that there's a failure to deal with the people who are doing this. The number of incidents that have taken place, recorded on camera, aired on television, even in this particular instance, the persons who perpetrated this level of assault are all clear. You can see them. But we are yet to hear of anybody who is being put before the courts or who is being punished for this. And that is the reason for which it is going on. Mr. Speaker, in addition to the leaders' call that we send a resolution to the executive branch, my prayer will be that that resolution includes a request for a proper public inquiry into the conditions under which law and order broke down at quite a number of collation centers. The conditions under which we have seen we must be firm and clear with the security agencies that it is their job as well to provide security, whether at collation centers or at public institutions or to public officers who are going about their duty. So, Mr. Speaker, I support the leaders' call that we send a resolution to the executive branch. My prayer, if it's possible, is to include in that resolution that a proper public inquiry should take place into the conditions under which law and order broke down at many parts where that law and order was supposed to have been preserved, so that we nip it in the bud and don't have an incident in 2028 where people take the law into their own hands. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Yes, Majority Leader. You want 2-2? 2-2. Yes, please.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity. I have listened carefully as my colleagues on the other side have spoken to this matter. I am on all fours with anyone who calls for some prompt action to stem this tide of misconduct and lawlessness, which has come to characterize our post-electoral periods. But, Mr. Speaker, it is absolutely imperative that this discussion is had in a frank manner. One would be tempted to think, if he were not living in this country, that this is a recent phenomenon. The reality, Mr. Speaker, is that since at least the year 2000, all those who can remember would recall that every change of government has been followed by this sort of activity. Mr. Speaker, things came to a head. Mr. Speaker, things came to a head when, after the 2016 elections, all manner of groups who had adopted blood-curdling names, such as Invisible Forces, Delta Forces, and what have you, were unleashed on the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I regret to recall that on the very first day of assumption of office by President Akufo-Addo, in fact, the first day that he reported for work at the Flagstaff House, a senior police officer, at the time ASP Nanka Bruce, who had been the head of security at the presidency under the previous administration, was set upon by a member of these so-called Delta forces. Mr. Speaker, what was the response?
Honorable member, please. I thought that we've gone beyond that. What we're now looking at, we have acknowledged all that in earlier statements. Only the details were not given, but it is something that we all have acknowledged. We have experienced them. So we are now looking for the way forward.
Mr. Speaker, thanks for the guidance. But it was necessary to record these events, to place the discussion in proper context, because I listened to my friend and brother, the Honorable Oponkroma, and others who spoke in a manner that suggested that this is a recent phenomenon. Mr. Speaker, I have a few, Mr. Speaker, I have a few proposals of my own. What I believe is the cause of these problems is that whereas we have done relatively well in the management of our elections, at the very least, we've had 4 peaceful transfers of power. So we have got that right. What we have failed to do is to get the immediate post-elections period processes right. It does appear that right after elections, right after the winner is declared, our security agencies go to sleep. They effectively collapse and therefore are unable to deal with these miscreants, some of whom act this way in retribution against others who they perceive to have wronged them in the past. Mr. Speaker, it does appear that our Presidential Transition Act requires further amendment to strengthen the hands of state agencies to deal more effectively with the immediate post-elections period. Mr. Speaker, I have wondered why it is not possible for the winner of the elections to take over power immediately. We do know that in the United Kingdom, for instance, a day after a new prime minister is elected, he takes over Downing Street. So there is literally no gap that will be filled by miscreants and persons who are minded to engage in lawlessness. I think that we can go on that tangent and ensure that the transition is quicker, is swifter, and more seamless than it is at this particular time. We run a patronage system. All of us would appreciate that. So sometimes the security agencies are frozen into inaction because they are unsure, they are uncertain about what fate awaits them if they were to move against persons who are perceived to belong to the party that has won the elections. And that is why sometimes these sort of things happen. But we cannot resolve this problem without taking a holistic view, without appreciating that it runs deeper than merely citing recent instances to buttress one's argument. So I associate with the position taken by the majority leader. But let us broaden the discussion. It is minority leader, your party, minority leader. But let us broaden the discussion. Let us realize that the problem runs much deeper than we are appreciating at the moment. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me this contribution.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this very important matter on the floor. And I want to thank the minority leader for bringing this up. Mr. Speaker, when countries have problems, have challenges, or have some mischiefs that they have to cure, we are required to brainstorm, to work together, to seek solutions to those problems. Mr. Speaker, and a case in point is the passage of the Transition Act, which was a response to the chaotic nature of the Fourth Republican transitions, which seems to have largely assisted in the smooth transition from one government to the other. The Presidential Office Act is yet another example. And that is why I believe that your admonishment and the call that we should focus on solutions and prefer suggestions to be able to deal with this matter is absolutely important. Mr. Speaker, the proposal that a resolution be sent from this House to the executive expressing the concern of this House and making the point that Parliament takes a dim view of what is happening in our country and further calling for a public inquiry into how these disturbances occurred during coalitions and the chaos we are witnessing in our country. Mr. Speaker, is one that I support, and it's one that I think we should examine very seriously. That this House, this Parliament, an arm of government, the legislature, sends a resolution to the executive expressing the House's deep concern about what is happening and calling for a public inquiry into all these acts of violence which are taking place in this country. Mr. Speaker, they talk about the length of transitions. Mr. Speaker, in the United States, elections are held on 4th November. Inauguration takes place on January 20th. Some 2 months plus. That is their transitional period. In Ghana, we have a 1-month transition. And yet, they do not, perhaps with the exception of the infamous 2021 transition, they do not have such chaos and such violence characterize their transitions. And so that, for me, is not the reason for what is going on. But, Mr. Speaker, there's another erroneous impression which has been created. Yes, there has been acts of violence perpetuated against members of the SWAL government and members of the NPP. But, Mr. Speaker, what is even more disturbing is the intra-government battles, and I say violent battles. Mr. Speaker, that is more disturbing. An NPP member has been pounced upon, he's been assaulted, he's been beaten, an NPP former minister has been molested. That is bad enough. But, Mr. Speaker, the situation where the President of the Republic makes an appointment to an important institution of state and political party tax hooligans and actors take siege of that institution and says,
Honorable Member, I don't know whether you were around. We have acknowledged these things, and you know that it's not just happening only today. It has happened before. So let's be honest and then look at the way forward. Let's look at the way forward.
Mr. Speaker, I perfectly agree with you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
I really take your wisdom. I perfectly agree with you. Mr. Speaker, I'm just contextualizing the matter and situating it in a context where we can have, Mr. Speaker, where we can have a bipartisan buy-in. Mr. Speaker, because if you listen carefully, the impression that is created is that, look, when the MPP took office in 2017, violence was meted out onto NDC members. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, that may be the case. And that since the NDC has been in office, a certain revenge, and I heard that from the other side. But I'm saying that actually for me is not even the issue. That is not the issue. That we all agree. But what is more of a fundamental problem and challenge, which is why, Mr. Speaker, you are right, that we should seek solutions and come up with suggestions in dealing with this matter. And I'm saying that this matter is even gotten to the point where the sitting president is being threatened as we speak today. At the youth today. Mr. Speaker, at the youth today at the Youth Employment Authority, 2 gentlemen appeared at the headquarters of the Youth Employment Authority. Mr. Speaker, both of them holding appointment letters from Jubilee House, and both of them with their tax. And there was a clash at the Youth Employment Authority today, and the president was being threatened. And so, Mr. Speaker, what I have to say is that this call by Right Honorable Speaker, and the minority leader, supported by the majority side, that we need to deal with this matter Mr. Speaker, I want to make some recommendations. The first recommendation I want to make, Mr. Speaker, that this matter is a purely, in all forms and shape, squarely a law and order matter. Mr. Speaker, it's a law and order matter. If somebody goes to pounce on Mr. Boateng at Jubilee Lounge and assault him, Mr. Speaker, you don't have to expand the Transitional Act in order to deal with it. It's assault. It's a crime under the criminal code of our country. The police must take charge of it and deal with it. Mr. Speaker, when people go to seize the Ghana Revenue Authority headquarters and threatens that they will not allow the president's appointee to take office, it's a law and order issue. Mr. Speaker, when people go to National Communications Authority and lay siege on National Communications Authority, it's a law and order issue. Mr. Speaker, when party tax and hoodlums actually seize the weapon of a military officer, they have the audacity and the effrontery to seize the weapon of a soldier. Mr. Speaker, it's a law and order issue. Yes. And so Mr. Speaker is asking for solutions. And I welcome that, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for that request. Mr. Speaker, the proposal and the suggestion we are making from this side of the House is that this should be construed by all intents and purposes as a law and order issue, and the Inspector General of Police, and the Ghana Police Service, and the President of the Republic, who is the chief custodian of law and order, should step in and bring law and order into our country. Mr. Speaker, look, if we don't deal with this matter, I'm not a prophet of doom, but it's going to get worse. Because once the government gets fully established, and there are no other offices for party tax to take over, Mr. Speaker, all of us, and by that I mean all of us in this house. Mr. Speaker, if you allow me to be blunt, the Right Honorable Speaker himself, members of this House, members of the religious community, civil society members, members of the media, ordinary citizens, my good friend A+, and all of us in this House, and all of us in Ghana, Mr. Speaker, we will all be at risk. Mr. Speaker, I followed your career very closely. And you have been an advocate of discipline and law and order. And you know too well, Mr. Speaker, that just as President Rawlings said to them, that when you have a stove, and one person puts his hand on the stove, and it burns him, and another puts his hand on the same stove, and it doesn't burn him, then there's a breakdown of law and order. So let me conclude. By reiterating the call that this House sends a resolution to the executive, and in that resolution, we should call for a public inquiry into the circumstances under which, on the 9th of 7th December, through 8th to the 9th to the 10th, after Ghanaians have gone and cast their vote, exercised their civil responsibility by casting their vote in peace and tranquility, when it came to collation, the Electoral Commission came under siege. At gunpoint, declarations were made, and this has traveled all the way to this point, and Ablekumanov is still outstanding, and this has traveled up to this point. That public inquiry should unravel and establish the circumstances which has led to this level of anarchy. And in conclusion, in that resolution, we should call on the president, who is the chief custodian of law and order, Mr. Speaker. To take charge of law and order in this country. President Mahama should take charge of law and order in this country. The number one duty of a president, the number one duty and responsibility, Mr. Speaker, respectfully, of a president is to ensure that there is law and order. Today, he has a minister for interior. He has a minister for defense. The security apparatus has been put in place. Mr. Speaker, in all humility and modesty, and respectfully, I conclude by saying, Mr. President, take charge of law and order. Take charge. Take charge.
Yes, please. Majority Leader. Majority Leader.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, the matters that we are discussing in this chamber today are very grave and serious matters. Mr. Speaker, I'm not a Christian, but some biblical verses sometimes jump at you, such as the one that you find in Galatians
Honorable
6,
Majority Leader,
7.
Honorable Majority Leader, please take your seat. Honorable members, just give me 5 minutes suspension of sitting. I'll just attend to something and be back myself to preside over this. 5 minutes only. Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, any act of violence by any person against any person in Ghana ought to be condemned. And so I start by unreservedly condemning any violence committed by anybody against any citizen of this country. So, Mr. Speaker, we must all stand together in condemning violence. It shouldn't be encouraged and entertained. But I think that we are discussing something bigger than just the act of violence by one person against another. We are discussing what we have all observed as a pattern that is developing in our democracy. Mr. Speaker, initially, the problem was organized violence by the different political parties against one another during election campaigns. That was what led us to think through the problem, and we passed the bill against vigilantism. That was to deal with pre-election violence and violence during elections, violence during campaigns, the organization of security groups by both political parties used during campaigns and ultimately used during elections. We enacted that legislation, and I think that we all agree that this last election, at least the period leading up to the election and the period of the campaign, saw less violence than we had seen previously in our political history. What we are seeing is also another form of violence that has often characterized change in regime, not election transitions. Because when it is a transition from a president who has served one term and is serving a second term and is continuing in office, we have hardly witnessed violence during such transitions. But when it is a transition from one political party to a different political party, whether from NDC to NPP or from MPP to NDC, what we have consistently witnessed has been some form of violence. And that is an area that, as a country, we have not yet thought through carefully and found a mechanism for addressing that form of violence. Mr. Speaker, contributors have said a lot of things that I believe provide some ideas as to how we may deal with a problem like that. As a member of the ECOWAS Parliament, I happen to be part of the election observation team to Sierra Leone. Immediately the results were declared, at 12 midnight of the evening of the declaration of the results, I observed that everybody was running towards the Radisson Hotel. I asked, what's happening at the Radisson Hotel? We are going to swear in the president. I said, but they just declared the results. So here, immediately they declare the results, we swear in the president. We don't allow any gap. The president has to take over immediately. And that is how they do it in Sierra Leone. Later on, they will now organize an inaugural event. But upon declaration of results, the president-elect takes office immediately so that he is in charge. Here we have a period usually about 1 month, between when the results are declared and when the new president takes over. Mr. Speaker, I have an example that an experience I want to recount here. After the election and before the inauguration of the new president, I received a call that the rice and maize that this House approved to be purchased, which had been stored in Tema at a warehouse, was being guarded and protected by some civilians. And that if I didn't intervene, there would be a problem, since I was a member of the transition team. So I got up and drove there to find out who were these civilians. There were some young people, some of them I knew, others I didn't know. And I asked them, what was the problem? And they said, oh, the rice that was purchased is being stolen, and so we are here to protect it. And I said, but you are not security agents. Why have you taken upon yourself to protect the rice? So we have to protect the rice, because some people intend to steal the rice. Mr. Speaker, I engaged them, and we came to some understanding how the rice should be protected until the 7th of January, when the new president is sworn in. Mr. Speaker, some of the ministry buildings, some of the agencies, young people went there, and if you went to them to ask them why they were standing there, said they were protecting public assets. And that some people intend to steal the vehicles there. Some people intend to steal some items in the ministries. And they could not trust the security agencies, so they were there to protect those assets. And we saw a similar pattern across the country. In fact, in my region, Mr. Speaker, the young men went, and some of them said there were some items in the warehouses of the various district assembly buildings. So I called my regional chairman, and we called the regional police commander, and we said, okay, go and secure these warehouses, put a padlock, and we told the young people, you believe that there are items there that will be stolen by the assembly staff. Okay, you to add one padlock. Take your key away. The regional commander will also take his key away. Nobody will open those warehouses until after the 7th of January, when the new president is sworn in. So they did that, and we secured everything in the warehouses. So what I see is a problem of trust and lack of confidence during transitions, and citizens taking it upon themselves to protect public assets, something that I find regrettable, and yet they think they are engaged in a patriotic duty. Why have we arrived at this? Mr. Speaker, if you recall, 4 years ago, in this very house, we had a major challenge, which was the question of recruitment into our security agencies. Mr. Speaker, if you recall, myself and my colleague, Honorable Suhini and Ablakwa, brought before this House a motion to investigate recruitment into the security agencies. Mr. Speaker, the ordinary thing that should happen is that during the transition, the security agencies should secure every asset of the state. Why is it that the youth of this country don't have confidence in the security agencies to do their job? Mr. Speaker, the answer is simple. They don't have confidence because in most cases, they see the actors in those security agencies as an extension of the party in power. They don't see the security agencies as independent professional institutions that will genuinely protect public assets. Because by the way we conducted affairs, we compromised the integrity of our security agencies. Yesterday, a civil servant serving in a ministry I will not mention called me and said, I am a civil servant. I came to work. I want to take one of the official vehicles and drive to controller to carry out some functions. But there are young people at the entrance of my ministry, and they're saying that I cannot move the vehicle out. I should go and use my own vehicle to go and carry out the function. I drove there, Mr. Speaker, met the young people, asked them what was the problem, so they are protecting the vehicles. So allow the civil servant to drive the vehicle to controller and carry out the functions and come back. So, okay, since you have come to tell us, we will let the vehicle go. Mr. Speaker, why will they seek to protect state assets from civil servants? Because we know that our civil service is supposed to be non-partisan. Our civil service is supposed to be professional. Why? Because we have conducted ourselves in such a way that we always, whilst in power, try to co-opt the civil service and use them as if they are part of our party apparatus and not independent professional officers who should not be acting under the whims and caprices of politicians. In doing that, we have compromised the neutrality and the integrity of our civil service. And so the public out there do not see the civil servants as neutral, independent, professional actors. They see them as part of our various political organizations. And so they don't trust them. So what we are facing today is a major loss of confidence in institutions that ordinarily should be independent, should be professional, and should be respected and highly regarded by every single Ghanaian. But they are not. And so when you ask me, what motion should we pass in this House? What resolution should we pass in this House? We should be passing a resolution asking this House to inquire into our conduct in office, out of office, that have ultimately led to the situation that we face today, where the young people in this country do not have confidence in our civil service, do not have confidence in our police service, do not have confidence in our army, and feel that they, on their own, should go and protect property and assets that we have recruited and we are paying these same services to protect. We have a genuine problem, and it is not a partisan matter. Today, we are reaping the benefits of the seeds that we invariably sowed when we were in office. And I hope that the party that I belong to, and that has just won an election and has taken over this country, will not go along that path. And that is why I am happy when ministers who appear before the Appointments Committee promise that they will ensure that recruitments into the military, recruitments into the police, recruitments into fire service, and all these professional bodies that are supposed to carry out independent and professional functions indeed are impartial, are not political, and that every single Ghanaian citizen has a fair opportunity of being recruited. And that when they are recruited, they are not made to understand that it is a reward for being a member of a political party, but that it is a calling to be part of a noble organization that should stand up for this country and not one political group. Mr. Speaker, we are reaping what we sowed. Let's not complain. Mr. Speaker, let me conclude by saying that I agree that we should condemn it together, unambiguously, across party lines. It shouldn't happen. Number two, I agree that we should review the situation with a view to coming out with proposals. How do we deal with this problem that we are confronted with? We can make recommendations which we can communicate to the executives. And let us not turn it into a partisan thing, start saying that the president has lost control, the president is not doing this, he hasn't taken charge, he should take charge. The president is trying to take charge of the situation. But the young people are telling him that you cannot trust the police, you cannot trust the military, you cannot trust the public service, because those who came before you politicized those organizations. I am telling you what I personally experienced. What I personally experienced. And I'm telling you, just yesterday, I had to go and convince the young people to allow a civil servant to perform his functions. They are clearly not right. But were we right when we created an impression that people should be recruited to the security agencies on the basis of partisanship? Were we right? Were we right when we politicized our civil service? Were we right when we politicized our military? Were we right? Were we right when we ran this country in such a way that we excluded everybody who was not part of our party? Were we right when all procurements, when a majority of procurements were sole sourced, and the business community were denied business unless they identify with a political party? Were we right? Mr. Speaker, we are sowing, we are reaping what we sowed. So, Mr. Speaker, I do agree that it's a genuine problem, but I'm saying that all of us have in the past behaved in ways that have encouraged the attitude, tendencies, and behaviors that we are witnessing today. Let us agree as a house that we are going to work together to end impunity, that we are going to work together to ensure greater inclusion in governance, that we are going to share the benefits of prosperity together. Mr. Speaker, on that note, I want to thank my colleague, the minority leader, for making this statement. We join him to condemn the violence against the manager of the Jubilee Lounge. We agree with him that the matter should be investigated. We agree with him that those who engage in such conduct must be held accountable. But I urge all of us to work together to change the narrative and to reset Ghana. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Well, honorable members, not just this House, I think the whole country has identified a very serious challenge and a threat to the survival of our democracy. A friend of mine, resident in the US, wrote to me and termed our democracy, Ghana's democracy, as lawless democracy. Now, when they say a democracy is lawless, it means it is not a democracy. It's a failed democracy. because democracy thrives on rule of law. Rule of law. Please, this House, I read a statement 2 days ago, is made up of 276 representatives of the people, elected members. The executive is made up of an individual president elected by the same people. If we, 276, elected from the diversity of Ghana, cannot come together to agree on the way forward, and you want to allow one individual who doesn't represent that diversity, he represents one group, a party. A party. How could he be the one to take the decision to solve such a problem? That is why it's incumbent on this House. This is the House that can sit together and find a solution to this national challenge. Globally, we are acclaimed, but this is a very sore point. And all objective observers saw this coming. We used to have what we call dominion service. It came down to colonial service, and then came to government service, then to civil service, then they termed it public service. Now it is self-service. Are you getting the trend? You can't get it. Now it is what? Self-service. Who are leading that? The political class. It used to be called dominion service, because that time the United Kingdom had dominions. So those who were working there were called dominion service. Then later on, they termed as colonies. Then it became colonial service. And you used to have the Secretary of State. And that we became a government. We formed our own governments and then became government service. Then we established civil service. I worked in the civil service before. Very strict rules. This civil service has deteriorated, and a term came to be used as public service. And usually, as they deteriorate, the conditions of service get better. So the public service servants rather receive better conditions than the civil servants, who were just serving the civilians. They were not looking for material gains. Now, this whole public service has gone worse and is now self-service. So when people are appointed into positions, including elected, the focus is how they serve themselves. So it's now self-service. The people are observing us as political leaders. This is what has deteriorated to the extent that our security agents now move from state security to government security. And now from government security into private security. That's where we are now. private security. Even private security, if you look at our law, the Constitution, and our laws, there are regulations, but that is not being done. So everybody is now trying to survive on his or her own. That is where we have come to, and that is why you have this. The only organ of government that can provide a solution is Parliament, because all the interest groups are represented here. The president cannot, because the president is seen as representing one class of people, political party. That is what is. You have to lead to find the solution. And so when you get the opportunity and you yourself get up and you are a mirror of what is happening, you encourage it. That is why we say we will manage this discussion so that we can take up the issue of the transitional blues. That's what is happening in our country now. Yes, we have very good, peaceful elections. After that, then everything goes haywire. We can't continue this way. Yes, it's true we have to look at the Transitional Act. It was a progress made, but there are a lot of gaps. The system that you were referring to, if you talk about UK, they don't have a term limit. There is no law in the UK saying that when you elect a government into power, it's going to serve from this date to that date. And so the circumstances determine whether they should call for election or not. Our constitution is very specific. Very, very specific. From 7th January to 6th January, that's a 4-year term. That's the end. It's automatic. And so we have to prepare. It's not the period that you use. You cited the US. Yes, they use a period. We also use one. But what should happen? Handing over is not what happens in Sierra Leone. Immediately they announce the results, the president is sworn in. What has he taken over? There must be a process where there's real handing over, peaceful one. You are going to be minister. This is what you are taking over. You can't just go to take over and it's an empty office. You're looking for information and you don't even know where it is. And that was what was happening here. That is why we are trying to pass the Parliament Transition Act, where after a speaker is elected, before you get to the office, the former speaker is nowhere to be found. Then all the staff there, they've left because their tenure has ended. Then you start asking questions. You're looking for the files, you can't trace any file. And it has happened, and it's happening in government. So we need to sit down, and I thought by this time, after this handing over a number of times, we have understood that no party can be in government forever. But yet, we haven't. We haven't, because I'm telling all of you, it's not them. There's no them and us. There's no them and us. We are the same people. And these people are just tools that are being used by some people in political offices. They are tools. They are just doing that for survival. You are the people behind the scene, pushing them there to do what they are doing. Until the political leaders sit down and take control, this is what will continue to happen in the country. We will all be at risk. And I really don't see leadership in many of you because you are being led by the mob. You are afraid of your followers. The leader must lead. You have to listen to your followers, yes. But you take the decision and you hold yourself responsible. You cannot be allowing mob to be pushing you to be doing what is happening in this country. That is not allowed. Then what is leadership about? And it's both ways. It's not just one party. It has happened. And in fact, on some occasions, I've had to weep because of how people I knew were mutilated and killed during transitions. Oh, yes. Yes. Even Jesus Christ wept. And you must know this. I think all of you, you've been quoting the Holy Quran and the Holy Bible. And the lessons are there. The best friend of Jesus Christ was who? Judas Iscariot. Not just Judas. Judas, there are many. Judas Iscariot. Who finally sold Jesus? It's not Judas. So today you sit here and Bob Marley told you that those who eat and drink with you, they will do what? Your best friends will be what? Exactly. Please. They will do what? Crucify him. And it has happened in this country on many occasions. I will want to please urge all of you to read the political history of this country. And you will see and you will learn so many lessons to guide you in your political career. That is if you want to stay long. If you want to be like others, fine, you can continue. But there are a lot of lessons for us to learn, which we haven't learned at all. Our definition of leadership is wrong. I will be initiating in this house, and I need your support. We will have to have what I term National Integrity Award. National Integrity Award, where annually we will identify people we believe are men and women of integrity and give them sumptuous awards. So that we can motivate people to do what is right, what is good, what is just, to sacrifice for people, to build people, not to build houses. These mansions that you people are building, I don't know whether you carry them into the graves. Please, I can't understand it. So when these young people are so hungry, they are very, very hungry because they've been denied food for 8 years, 4 years, and they see that the one denying them the food is no longer there. What do you think they will do? It's survival of the fittest. And when I saw the incident that the minority leader referred to, oh, it's sad. But we've seen similar ones. But should we encourage it? Should we allow it to go on? Should we keep on decrying the situation? We must find solution to it. So I'm going to charge the leaders. It's not a matter of resolution. No. We have to take this Presidential Transition Act. We are working on ours. We have done a transition here smoothly without you people realizing it. There was a clerk of parliament. Now we are having a new clerk of parliament. It's a transition. Smoothly. And we managed it. He is still acting. And you act to the last day, which is 2nd February. That is when the former clerk would have ended his tenure. He's on leave prior to retirement. Then he will now be confirmed as full clerk. Smoothly. And we are doing everything to make sure that he will still have us in mind. And anytime we call on him, he will be here to support the House. We can put these systems and structures in place at the national level. I had to call my former Professor Michael Quay, and that is why many of the times I'm doing things, I refer to them. And we've been talking. We are good friends. He's my former boss. It's just that now it's my tenure, it's my term. Why can't we do that at the national level? It's sad. What is the difference between this and the military regimes? You haven't experienced it. You don't know. 1966 coup. You were not born. 1979 coup. You were very young. Eh? You were born. 79. 1981, you were born. That one you were born. Yeah, in the 79, you were not born. You were born. But you don't know what occasioned it. And you don't know what the then leaders, many of you who keep on blaming His Excellency, the late Jerry John Rawlings, he was even in detention. Those who staged the coup, and he came in and they took him as their leader. You don't know what happened. Who were there? I was a strange leader then. These days, you get up and talk about your leadership. Eh? Later days since. So please, we are in charge of the issue of law and order. Let's do what is right. Because as at now, until we take up the leadership, the current ministers that we are appointing and approving, actually we are approving for the president to appoint, they will have it difficult to, on their own, reset the country. It's this House that have to anchor them to be able to do it. We have to. So if you keep on making these exchanges, you are worsening the situation. Please. I will end it here. And I want to call on all of you, if you are part of those having private security, to disband them. We don't want something forces, or what are the other names? Something boys. We don't want them. No, we don't want them. Please, I expect that after you've spoken, you take up the leadership. And I have directed that each and every one of you be given the code of conduct that we approved as a House. Every member of Parliament must be given a copy. And I'm going to enforce it. That is why I made the statement that if you have evidence of any member indulging in galamsey, draw my attention. I will put in motion a process where you lose your membership as a member of Parliament. Please bring the information to my notice. We will take action. Yes. That is how we can fight galamsey. Because if you are the people behind And these poor people who are saying all die be die, they know when they're in the pit can collapse and they will die, but they have no alternative. When they come out of the pit, do you look at them like human beings? They are just tools you are using. So we will start it from here. And I mean what I say. Honorable member, please, are you listening? The gentleman seated by Honorable former Minister for Communication, Minister for Finance, are you listening to me? I mean what I am saying. I'm not joking. Unless you hide the information from me, but if I get to get any credible information on any of you on this matter, I'm going to initiate the process. And you can lose your seat as a member of parliament. The law is there to enable us to do that. Please, a word to the wise is enough. Leadership National Integrity Award. We'll take it up. The second one, please, let's take up the Transition Act. Whether we still call it Presidential Transition Act or something else, let's look at it deeply. We are doing ours, Parliamentary Transition Act, but let's look at the national one and make sure that all what you have learned and what you've said are taken care of, and we can lead the process. Don't let's leave it to the executive, because they represent one group, and they are being, I can tell you for sure, that they are being led by the mob. And our illustrious king, Otumfuo himself, stated it, that our presidents are usually what? Cocooned by societal forces. And so the decisions they take, it's not their decisions. We can't allow that to continue. And you are the leaders here. And I keep on saying, in the democracy, it's parliament. When parliament kicks or takes, then the democracy will do what? It will take. So we must change our ways. Thank you so much. We have a few more statements, and I'll ask the first Deputy Speaker to take at least 2 of them, and you can continue with the rest tomorrow. They are very important statements. I'm happy that the first timers are doing well in this direction. Well-researched, well-written statements. So please, take 2 of them, and with the support of the leaders, I think we should start with the one on BRICS. Statement on Nigeria's admission into BRICS and its implications for West Africa and ECOWAS.
Honourable members, Speaker has recognized a statement, and that is a statement on the floor.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
As you may be well aware, we have some vetting on, so I would want to proceed with mine, so if leave will be granted.
In relation to the statement that has been admitted and supposed to be taken on the floor?
That is so.
Very well.
Thank you.
But let me inform you that the statement is on Nigeria's admission into BRICS and its implication for West Africa.
That is so. That is so. Mr. Speaker, thank you once again for this treasure space to make this statement on Nigeria's admission into the BRICS and its implication for West Africa and ECOWAS. Mr. Speaker, I make this statement in my capacity as the third Deputy Speaker of ECOWAS Parliament and member of the ECOWAS Parliament. And I find it very imperative to address this House on Nigeria's recent admission as a partner country of the BRICS bloc, which includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This development presents both opportunities and challenges that demand our immediate attention within the context of West Africa and the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, particularly as the region navigates economic recovery in a post-pandemic era. Mr. Speaker, since its inception in 2009, BRICS has grown into a significant alliance representing over 40% of the global population and approximately 25% of the world's GDP, valued at over $27 trillion. With the establishment of the new development bank, boasting an initial capital of $100 billion, the bloc aims to provide alternatives to traditional Western-dominated financial institutions. This collective economic acumen positions BRICS as a major player in shaping global trade, investment flows, and the development policies with the potential to influence key international economic decisions. In recent years, Mr. Speaker, BRICS has expanded its membership with Indonesia, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, United Arab Emirates, and with Iran joining, other countries like Argentina, Malaysia, Thailand, and Turkey have also expressed interest. This expansion highlights BRICS' commitment to fostering cooperation among emerging economies and enhancing its role in global governance. Mr. Speaker, as Africa's largest economy, Nigeria's inclusion in BRICS is a recognition of its growing influence on the global stage. As the most populous nation in Africa, with a robust and diversified economy, Nigeria's alignment with the BRICS group could redefine regional trade, development, and geopolitical strategies. Through BRICS, Nigeria can advocate for fairer trade practices, increase foreign investment in Africa, and access to technology that supports industrialization. For West Africa, Mr. Speaker, this development could serve as a catalyst for regional integration in economic development. Nigeria accounts for approximately 60% of the total GDP of the Economic Community of West Africa states, making its BRICS partnership a potential game changer for the region. Nigeria's membership offers an opportunity to attract BRICS investment into the region, particularly in infrastructure, energy, and technology. As BRICS nations expand their focus on South-South cooperation, West Africa could benefit from increased collaboration in addressing developmental challenges such as food security, climate change, and trade barriers. Leveraging BRICS trade links could expand market access for ECOWAS member states, especially in sectors like agriculture, energy, and technology. In addition, Mr. Speaker, funding from the New Development Bank, formerly the BRICS Development Bank, could be channeled into regional projects such as the West African Power Pool and other infrastructure developments. Again, Nigeria's strengthened global standing may enhance ECOWAS' ability to address security issues in the Sahel region, which have obstructed various developmental efforts. Mr. Speaker, these notwithstanding, this alliance may also come with its challenges. Nigeria's alignment with BRICS could potentially shift its focus from ECOWAS priorities, particularly in instances where BRICS interests diverge from regional objectives. This could lead to a redefinition of Nigeria's leadership role within ECOWAS, as it balances its commitment to the region and its responsibilities within the BRICS. Additionally, Nigeria's membership could create new power dynamics within West Africa. As the largest economy, Nigeria must ensure that its engagement with BRICS benefits not only its domestic interests, but also contributes to the collective development of the ECOWAS sub-region. This will require strategic diplomacy and a commitment to shared regional goals. Mr. Speaker, I urge this House to consider how Ghana and the rest of ECOWAS can strategically position themselves in the light of this development. We must engage Nigeria to ensure that its participation in BRICS complements rather than undermines the objectives of ECOWAS. As a region, we must explore partnerships with BRICS countries to strengthen our collective bargaining power and enhance economic development across West Africa. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, Nigeria's admission into BRICS is a significant milestone with profound implications for West Africa and ECOWAS. It is a strategic partnership which potentially offers Ghana and ECOWAS new pathways to trade, development, and economic integration. However, to fully realize these benefits, regional leaders must embrace cooperation, invest in innovation, and implement strategies that leverage shared strengths for collective progress. As a global balance of power shifts, let us harness opportunities it presents whilst addressing the potential challenges to ensure that our region continues to thrive in an increasingly interconnected world. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, the statement standing in the name of Honourable Minority Leader Alexander Aponyo-Makin is made. I will welcome comment from members subject to Standing Order 93.5. I recognize the Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I think we have a matter that we needed to attend to.
Honourable members, owing to a pressing needs, I'm minded to suspend the House for 1 hour. Accordingly, suspended.